Welcome to another installment of My Stylish Life, which is a podcast where we delve into all the interior design tips, advice, and trends, I guess, because we're not trendy people up here. But to just really give you some inspiration and ideas for how to make your life more stylish.
Yep.
I'm your host, Linda, and with me is my co-host, Bridget. How are you, Bridget?
Hi, guys. Good. How are you, Linz?
You good today?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We're doing good. Tell me about what we're going to chat about today. What is
cool? So today I thought that we could have a conversation about expectations versus reality.
The proverbial what I ordered versus what I got.
Exactly. Because I think in interior design, this is quite a thing for us to chat about.
Absolutely.
We have access to so much out there in the world of interior design that you as a person can watch, look at. You have resources, apps. I mean, it's a lot. And I think certain expectations are created, and what is it like actually in reality?
Yeah. And I mean, we all obviously have a vision for the spaces that we want to create and what we want to do with them. And there's often a breakdown in that that transfer of your expectation versus what it actually turns out
getting
to be.
From A to B.
Yes.
How do we
that road is very rocky.
Yes. How do we get from A to B?
Yes. In translating and bringing our visions to life. So, I mean, I think we, certainly you as an interior designer, I'm sure you want to help people turn their dreams into reality.
Yes.
But there's things you got to take into account.
Certainly. And we'll get there. I mean, obviously, the biggest end goal as an interior designer or anyone within like our profession would be that your expectations are fulfilled.
Yes.
So there is no disappointment. I saw this meme and maybe I must share it because it was so funny. Yeah. It was a little video clip of, I don't know, of this couple with their decorator, and she was doing this unveiling and the lady started crying, but not tears of happiness. She was really upset, and anyway, it's quite funny. I mean, it was like set maybe in the 70s. It was like very retro.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
Okay, no, I saw a more more up-to-date version of that. One of these TV shows.
Okay.
It was when they've done the revamp or the remodel, and now they're walking the family through the house. The wife was visibly unimpressed.
Oh,
she had this look of disgust on her face.
You see, that would be like the ultimate worst. I mean, look, we want tears. I mean, to get tears, that's the best. But tears of joy.
Oh my word! It must be quite nerve-wracking for you when you are finally showing people through their space.
It is, especially like in someone's home, because it's so personal. I mean, this is like everyone's got their dreams and expectations weighing on this and the grand reveal. So certainly there's always expectation.
That fear of like, are they going to love it?
In our realm of what we do, which is the pressure's on. You know what I mean? The pressure's on. And there's a lot that's set up from what is out there as well, and what you think you're getting and how you think things should be and how things should go. But certainly a lot of it is, I think, as a person, which I think you'll understand as having been a client and having built yourself and done renovations projects. This is your money. This is your hard-earned money that now you are spending, and you wanting to get, that kind of see it to fruition, what you have worked so hard.
One bang for your buck, but also
but your dreams.
The dream must come to life.
Come true, right? Exactly.
Yeah. But I think let's talk a bit about how TV shows and these kinds of renovation shows kind of play a role in kind of fueling this almost misinformation about the process.
Do you watch any any home shows?
In its heyday, I loved Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Does that still carry on?
I actually don't know if it's still on.
I don't know if it does
I think
either.
Wasn't that like the start of this home renovation show?
It was. And I mean,
model.
I just want to say, I do think that what they showed was completely unrealistic because
building a brand new
there is no way that they just waltzed in, and there was a lot of pre-planning. Guys, there's always pre-planning.
But also American houses are made of blanks.
Yes, I mean, that kind of stuff is completely not relevant to the South African market. But even so, I find it very hard to believe that that kind of stuff they can pull off in just a week. There's a lot of pre-planning, lead times involved in our industry. And I think that, I would say, is the biggest kind of misconception about all of these home shows, is that there's production going on behind the home show that you're watching.
Exactly.
So, it's not like we drive around with like a boot full of samples and now we're coming to have a consultation with you for the very first time and have all these ideas for the very first time and be like, yes, this is what I'm going to show you. Here it is. I've got it with me. I've never seen your place before, but this is what we're going to do. Right, and I can show you how. There's thought that goes into what we're doing, a lot of thought, and that is the benefit.
And multiple drafts, I suppose, also just to get to the ideal.
Yeah, but the biggest thing is there's a lot of processes that go on behind the scenes to make sure that actually the expectations of your design dream are met, which I think, that kind of stuff is not shown on a home show. Personally, I've always loved the block. I think I don't really like watching home shows.
Just because
sorry, guys,
this is not even close to reality.
But I always have kind of enjoyed the Australian block.
Okay.
I do think that the kind of design, some of the designs that I've seen there, I've quite enjoyed. And obviously for them, it's produced really well, so it's quite entertaining as well.
I must say, I actually never got into it.
Didn't you?
My brother was obsessed, but I never got into it.
Okay, that I suppose is the one that I did enjoy.
Okay.
So my mother-in-law is a big HGTV and home channel fan. She watches all the shows. And sometimes we'll have tea and she'll tell me about what she's watching. And she knows I don't watch it and I don't particularly, like any of these.
Yeah.
But quite recently, like maybe 2 months ago, she was like, oh no, Bridget, you actually really have to watch this show. And it's set in Canada and about this kind of a day in the life of this Canadian interior designer and her firm and the kind of work that they do. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. I've never heard of it. I'll watch it. And I was actually saying to Mia, who's with me, I was like, it was amazing. It was like watching a day in the life of us. Because,
and it was realistic.
Yes, it was so realistic in terms of like the struggle that we find ourselves in our profession with kind of service providers and just like the stresses that happen to us in our industry. And I think what I found to be so refreshing is that this is not just like happening to us here or in South Africa. It's like a global thing in terms of the interior design. And I actually reached out to her on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, I sent her a message and I was like, it was so refreshing to watch. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And she messaged me back and she was like, oh, it's so amazing that, people in South Africa are watching our show.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I'm so glad. And then I follow her on Instagram. And the other day I was having a laugh because she was, here she is now, this like hotshots designer and has her own home, channel show, but carting rugs around in her boot. And I was like, yep.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we do.
It's not this glamorous job.
It's not. So that's the first expectation versus reality. It's really not that glamorous, guys.
Glamorous.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and you'll see us, me and my team, on site in our active wear and
leisure, ready to pick up boxes.
I don't even, certainly not glamorous looking, literally moving furniture ourselves to help the process along.
Because when it's like T-minus 2 hours,
you're all gonna get your hands dirty. But I think like going back to the expectation that these home channels create. I mean, I think it's lovely for people if they gain inspiration from it or they see something they like. But kind of the biggest takeaway reality-wise is timelines.
just not realistic.
Not realistic.
Things will take months.
Things will take months.
Yeah.
I mean, there are lead times to manufacture items. No one has, certainly not in South Africa, there's no kitchen waiting to go in a, someone's workshop. It has to be drawn. We design it. It gets a technical drawing. All the specs get done. It gets quoted. Their meetings to discuss finishes and costings, making sure the budget is all approved. Then it starts to get manufactured off-site. And then, of course, it's the on-site installation. That's just a kitchen.
And sometimes things are also coming from other parts of the world, right?
Well, yes. And I mean, some of those lead times, and again, this is like a big reality check here, is sometimes like when we buy something, it's an import. And we might get told, okay, it's going to take 12 weeks. That's 3 months, guys. Something might happen. Suddenly it's 16 weeks, So, and sometimes a lot of those times, those things are not in our control, So that is a big reality check here. Is the timelines.
I remember that as a client, because it was working with you was my first experience working with an interior designer. And when that first happened to us, where there were those delays and weeks turned into a month and then it's 2 months, you're kind of like, at first it's like alarming because you think, no man, but I mean, why is it going to take that long for me to get a couch? But then I think as time goes on, you kind of learn to kind of go, okay, well, settle up, because there is nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you as the interior designer can do about it. But you just got to trust that these things will arrive and they will be in good condition when they arrive and things will then go, the plan will resume. So when things are out of your control as the client and as the interior designer, I guess you kind of have to just go, okay, let's roll with the punches and do what we can in this time.
Yes.
Work on other aspects of the project that are less reliable on third parties or whatever. And just like, otherwise, you will pull your hair out and you will go grey because it is very stressful. And I think that's another thing that is downplayed a lot in these shows, is that it can be quite stressful because your budget gets stretched sometimes, and maybe you and your partner, if you're building together or designing your space together, will have disagreements and things.
You're not on the same page.
You will have decision fatigue as well because there's just so many options. But I suppose part of your role as an interior designer is to kind of help a client to kind of get to the right selection based on the choices available and all of those things. But there's a lot to consider, and it is quite an emotional roller coaster.
There's often a joke out there that I've seen that is like part-time designer, part-time therapist.
I absolutely believe it.
Sometimes as a designer, you are put in the middle between a husband and a wife
who can't agree.
Yeah, who can't agree. And I try and stay clear personally of like those conversations. So Bridget, like whose idea do you prefer? Really don't like to get involved in that.
How do you
it's tricky.
Walk that line?
I mean, look, it's tricky. But like for us, I mean, if you're hiring an interior designer and you're working with an interior designer, I just think those kind of things we really do help with and stay true to the project needs and goals and like help our clients come to the right decision, just steer it on course, because it is very stressful. And, if you are hiring a professional team, part of what we do is we try and absorb most of that stress for our clients to try and make it as much of a pleasant experience as possible, because things happen. Things really do happen. Things can break. Things can get lost. If we're talking furniture, building is happening before your very eyes. Like you said, all sorts can actually happen during these processes, and kind of our role is to try and sort all of those things out behind the scenes
on behalf of the client.
I
love that we're talking about this aspect now, because I think that's part of as we get into what the expectation versus reality is in terms of working with an interior designer and what an interior designer's role in that process is. I think a lot of people, there's a misconception that having an interior designer, one is like this service only reserved for the wealthy and people who can afford that kind of thing. But and then also just the perceived frivolity of it all, kind of like, oh gosh, you're so fancy, you've got an interior designer. But when it comes to the point that you made earlier, absorbing the stress, absorbing and almost taking the punches on behalf of the client, that's a huge role to play that you guys do. It's kind of like having a wedding planner. It's like the equivalent. Well, no, not the equivalent, but it's metaphorically speaking, that kind of role where you're an intermediary in a way.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, like we are the kind of liaison between all the various moving parts,
and also just making sure that, again, like you were saying earlier, the vision, every time things go off the track, you are the one to bring things back to center, to kind of go, this is what was the plan.
Fulfill the expectation. Exactly. I think essentially that would be our main goal from the beginning. Like we show you all these wonderful drawings of what your space can be, and our job is to fulfill that expectation of this is what we've drawn, this is what we've created. We need to make sure that we get to that point. And I mean, personally, that is what we strive to do. And, you know, I'm always quite proud of the work that we personally do at the end of the day, where I can say, yes, we drew that and we executed it to that.
But also, I suppose there has to
get
be
that process from A to B. Yeah.
Within that, though, there has to be a little margin of wiggle room sometimes when it comes to translating the vision, surely.
Well, I mean, some things can happen. I mean, like,
because it's not like you're going to get your exact Pinterest reference image.
No, I mean, I think let's talk about Pinterest. That's another great point. But I mean, let's just talk about something that can happen. For instance, maybe when we start working on your project, we showed you a certain tile or something like that, or a light fitting, and then perhaps, depending on the project timeline, maybe when it comes to executing, that's now suddenly not in stock or available anymore. Then we have to choose something else. So always again, it's not straightforward, because we're looking then to find an alternative that is within the original budget, roundabout, that is similar looking. But you know, that's again where the strength lies in hiring a design professional. Your professional team is immersed in this world. So we know what we can do to fix it, and try. And again, let's go back to what the end goal is, what we're trying to create. But I would just like to touch on this, working with a design professional. I think an expectation would be there are different kinds of kind of professionals within the world of interiors. You know, interior designer, an interior decorator, perhaps a stylist. And I think depending on what your goals are for your space, you need to be working with the right professional.
So your goal will determine which professional you go with.
Yes, correct. Okay. Because you cannot expect, for instance, like a stylist or even an interior decorator who have their strengths of what they're working on to be working on multi-level huge square meterage building project. You know, we all have our skill sets within the industry. So I think if you are looking to work with a professional, you need to be choosing the right professional from the outset so that your expectations are met, and that we don't land up having the situation like that meme that's going around, that little clip of a disastrous project handover. So I would just like to touch on that. But let's go back to Pinterest. So, I mean, sure, I think everyone has a Pinterest page. I mean, Pinterest is amazing. As design professionals, we also have Pinterest pages. It's just such a wealth of inspiration, isn't it?
Creativity, ideas.
Oh, so much.
There's lots you could garner from there.
I mean, personally, I'm like forever looking for recipes. I like cooking, guys. That's my favorite hobby. I'm forever, my food board is big on Pinterest. But I think what Pinterest does is, obviously, you know, when we meet clients, we're like, do you have a Pinterest page? most of them do.
Okay.
So we'll ask to see it because the images on Pinterest are amazing. They are beautifully styled. A lot of the images on Pinterest are not South African based, you know. So there's kind of this, they have access to different products to create that space. And we kind of, as the professional, or even if you're not, you just as a person, how do you recreate this like Pinterest idea in your head to the reality of it?
And just making sure that it works in your space. Because spatially, you might not be able to replicate.
That's exactly
what
the point, that I wanted to make, is that you seeing like a little section of something that completely not be able to do within your space because it is so different. So I would just like to say, just bear that in mind when, you know, kind of looking through Pinterest and exactly what you're wanting to create. But Pinterest is also great. You know, there's so many DIY kind of hacks on there. I think on TikTok as well. Are you on TikTok?
I am a voyeur of TikTok.
Me too.
I don't have my own page or anything. I just watch a lot of stuff. Just to kind of
have you watched any interior design, like kind of, or decor TikToks?
Not yet. I'm kind of like being served whatever TikTok is serving me right now. I need to really, thing is, I feel really old. Okay, if I must confess, I can't keep up with all the platforms.
I know. I feel like Instagram is like where I'm at.
Your threshold.
Yeah, and I still do have a Facebook page, but I'm like a much more, I have a much more active Instagram
on Instagram
than Facebook. But TikTok for me, I just feel like now I'm too old for TikTok personally.
Never too old. Never too old.
But maybe tell us. I mean, I'd be interested to know, like, what are our listeners? Like, where are you guys? Are you on Instagram? Are you guys on TikTok? Because maybe we need to delve down that rabbit hole. I don't know. Let us know. But Pinterest, lots of DIYs. So I just want to share with you guys the backdrop that you're having a look at in our studio.
This gorgeous shelf unit here.
I'm actually going to share you guys. This was stemmed from a DIY inspiration from Pinterest. And there kind of quite a lot of IKEA hacks on Pinterest where you can go and buy a pre-bought unit and then they kind of transform it to make it look like very bespoke. And I had a very nondescript, boring shelving unit already within my home office space here that was in melamine and it was not exciting whatsoever, and kind of, you know, was inspired by this hack that I saw to transform it. And I'll share the befores and afters on how we got. But I mean, again, I just want to say there were a few, you know, we had to have a few meetings about it with my team to make sure that we got it right. It's not as straightforward as you expect. And again, just a disclaimer, even watching those things, it's not all as
you don't have to feel like you are the
I mean, we did have to have some stuff had to come off and it had to be redone. So it's not all as straightforward as it seems.
But it turned out beautifully.
Yeah. No, I mean, now we're like really stoked. Yeah, love the arches, really happy with now the end goal. But there was a process to get from A to B, which was not as per the video that we had watched, which was kind of like a recreation in one day.
Yeah.
So that would be the big expectation here versus reality. Again, I think timelines. Also, just another conversation we need to have is budgets.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
Scary B word.
Yes, because I think some of these like shows. Also, I don't know if they're showing the full costs of actually how much the project actually costs. I think sometimes they share, okay, A, B, and C, but perhaps they don't share like the other, like they'll show some of the big ticket stuff, but not all the other stuff. So I think
all the boring stuff that you've got to do back end.
Yeah, people have like a false sense of the reality in terms of how much it actually costs to do a project. And
it's usually more than people expect.
Yeah, potentially a little
How do you mitigate that as an interior designer?
So, I mean, look, we obviously do a lot of research into when we come up with design schemes. And the way we work, I mean, obviously we get in quotes and it's all very broken down. And even, I just want to say, myself as a designer, we're very upfront about how we charge for our design services, because that also is a bit of a hidden thing. People are like, they don't know. Like, how do you actually charge? And I always find that it's better to be, this is how we
transparent,
charge.
absolutely.
Yeah, be transparent. This is how we charge. We invoice here, we invoice there. So everyone is on the same page, again, in terms of the expectations of the project. I think if you explain a lot to your clients about a whole process, everyone then becomes on the same page.
Exactly. And that's what you want.
Communication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, in terms of budgets, I think it's really important to discuss budgets with your clients. And a lot of times people don't know. They have absolutely no idea how much these things cost. How much do doors cost? How much is it going to cost to paint the whole house? How much does the kitchen cost? But the great thing is that there's always options. So,
you can still achieve the look, but with
exactly. So there are ways and means on still achieving it, but that we can go back to the drawing board. And again, I think this is where another great thing of working with a design professional, that is where we really help in the project, because we know what is available and what is out there, and how can we still achieve the dream and create within the budget. So I think that's really important. And the other thing I just wanted to say is, a lot of time, like if you're building a house, I think people are so invested in actually getting the shell that they leave no money at the end for finishing it off. And then I think there's a lot of disappointment, because here you have your Pinterest pic, which is styled. Now you see, that's the thing about the Pinterest pic. They're not showing like an empty room. They're showing a beautifully styled room, right down to, all the vases and whatnot. And I think that's always just to keep in the back of your mind if you are embarking on a project, is yes, the expensive big ticket items are your big ticket items, but always just remember at the back of your head, back of your mind, is to keep a little bit for your furniture.
Exactly.
And especially because when you've exhausted your funds, you're definitely not going to have that follow through to finishing it.
I've seen
off.
one too many houses for sale online where the house is gorgeous, the shell is gorgeous, but then the furniture is like...
because people run out of steam. They've finished their budget. So I just think, as a little tip, when you are working out your budget, or when you do have a budget presented to you, by like, let's say, your builder or whatever, just always remember to kind of keep aside some of the money, so that expectation of your dream, which is fueled by something you've seen, is actually realized at the end.
What is the kind of ratio you would say to keep aside? Like, if you are building a brand new house and wanting to furnish it, is it like 60-40 building and 40% your
I would say it's less.
Or?
It's actually a pretty tough question.
I mean, I suppose it's relative.
It's relative, It's all relative to what you're doing, what you're building. How big is it? How small is it? What is like the actual desired finish? Is it like really luxe?
Yeah.
Because obviously then you're going to have to keep aside quite a bit more. But
in relation,
I would say in reality, maybe 80-20.
Okay.
I don't know.
At least 20.
Side note, Mia, do you have any thoughts? Mia's sitting in the sidelines.
Mia's hiding in the sidelines. Well, I mean, I think when I think about, ours, we didn't do the entire house, but I think maybe like even a 70-30.
Maybe even 70-30.
You do want, as higher quality as possible with your finishings. But
no, absolutely. Okay. So biggest takeaways, I think, if you are listening and you are wanting to embark on a building or a reno project, just, the expectation versus reality on everything that you're seeing on TV, online, is just bear in mind budgets, I think a lot of the stuff out there is not realistic, what you've been shown or not shown in this case, and timelines, because it will definitely take longer. And like, just a side note, going back to the block that we spoke about, I mean, there's absolutely no way that we can renovate a bathroom in a week. I mean, they are showing us full room transformations that happen in 7 days. There is, I mean, I wish we could tell people that we could, I mean, jeepers, that would be like life goal. Let's see. Can we actually transform a kitchen in 7 days? Well, absolutely not.
I think the main thing that people must just remember about these shows is that it's television.
Well, yes.
It is television, and that it is purely there for your entertainment and some inspiration, but it's TV. So none of that stuff really is real from a timeline, budget, all of those perspectives. It's not close to reality, but
And then when looking at Pinterest, which we love Pinterest, just remember like that's your space where you wanting to create that specific bit of Pinterest that you have posted. Just remember that your space might not be that same, and to try and recreate that might not be possible exactly. So it's just to have a little bit of a reality check about that.
Absolutely.
But what I will say, I mean, we get shown all these things as a design professional, and certainly, our main objective is to kind of make sure that your expectations, your met. Design dreams are met.
Absolutely.
And that, it fulfills kind of as per what you've seen, and that we go over and above that even. Awesome. That's always the fun part.
I think now we should move on to our design conundrum.
Cool.
Every episode, guys, we encourage you to send us through your design conundrums. If you've got any design related questions that you'd like us to answer or help you make decisions about, please send us a message either in the comments below on the YouTube page or DM us on Instagram. My Stylish Life podcast. We'd really love to hear from you. You can send us a voice note or you can send us a text message and we will answer you. So
also, just a side note, if you guys have any ideas for future podcasts, anything you want us to really unpack or chat about, please also send us a message. We'd love to hear from you guys as the listeners.
Fabulous. Okay, let's get into our design conundrum.
Hey, Bridge, I have so many interior questions for you. I suppose the one, I don't know if you want them, directed to you as an interior designer from a client for a job, or whether, how you want them structured. But I suppose one of them would be, how do you balance the client's need with what you know will and won't work?
Somebody wanting to know about how to balance the client's needs with what you as an interior designer know will or won't work. So how do you balance that,
Well, I think this is kind of where the whole role of an interior designer really, you see the strength of it, because it is all about that. Ultimately, we are balancing the client's needs and expectations and guiding them into the right decisions. I mean, if a client says to me, for instance, I really like this, but I know that it can't work in that particular environment, or it's really, like a terrible idea. Obviously, I'm going to guide them.
I'm dying to now ask you, like, if you've ever had a client that just dug their heels in and said, I want this, hideous thing they were suggesting.
I've actually been really lucky. I've yet to come across like a situation like that. But ultimately, like, I'm not going to let you make a terrible decision. You know what I mean? Like, you can say to me, oh, I really like this and I want to use it. And if I know that it's really not going to work in a very nice diplomatic way, I'm going to guide you and let you know that we can't do that. So it's all about kind of managing that whole process. Or a client really likes something specific and says to me, I really do not like tiles. Then it's my job to make sure that I can't go and say, oh, well, then I really think you need to do this mosaic because, that's not going to work.
They don't like tiles.
Yes, they don't like tiles. So I'm really not doing my job, am I? So, we will then come up with a whole lot of other solutions to fulfill that. So it is all about kind of that balance of you know, what they're wanting to do, and we provide and steer the right decision making for that.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, we always, as an interior designer, and I think any design professional, you have to work with a brief if you're working with a client. So we find out a lot of information about, you know, what you like, what you don't like, so that we are making the right decisions for you. And that's what we'll always go back to, is always acting on your best interests, but helping you make the best decisions for your projects.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
also, guys, we have a special guest star.
This is our mascot.
Yeah, this is Ruby. And she usually is lying on the floor when we tape podcasts. And today she's come up here on my lap. Yeah, so if you're watching, you will see and meet Ruby.
And we love her.
Yeah, so check us out on YouTube and you will get to see her.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. We will catch you on the next installment. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And send us ideas.
And like us on Instagram, My Stylish Life podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.
See you soon. Bye.
Cheers.